Chapter 96, Fellow Cultivators. The one who came was a Taoist monk clad in a Taoist robe, giving off the vibe of a Taoist immortal with chignon-combed hair, duster in hand, feet in cloud shoes, as an indistinct smiling expression hung on his thin and peaceful face. "You are?" Hu Sinyu was the reception manager of the manor. Upon seeing an old Taoist monk come uninvited, he immediately stood and asked. After all, if Jia Ruidao and Tang Xiu didn't want to see this old Taoist, he was responsible for sending this old Taoist out. The old Taoist's eyes carefully swept over everyone before his eyes were fixated on Tang Xiu. He then spoke with a smile. "This old Taoist comes from Shibei's Ziyang Monastery. My Taoist name is Dao Master Zi, and was invited by someone to be a guest in Jingmen Island. This one accidentally heard about what happened at the Everlasting Feast Hall yesterday, so this one has come here to visit Benefactor Tang." Jia Ruidao asked with a deep tone, "How do you know that Brother Tang is that person?" Dao Master Zi said with a smile, "Surely you're Benefactor Jia, aren't you? It's just someone has recognized you and says that you and Benefactor Tang has come together, so this poor Taoist infers that this should be Benefactor Tang." Tang Xiu nodded and said, "I'm Tang Xiu. I wonder, how may I help you with?" Dao Master Zi replied with a smile. This old Taoist would like to invite Benefactor Tang for a cooperation to challenge and break into the Evil Dragon Sea area. I don't know whether Benefactor Tang has any interest to cooperate with this one? Evil Dragon Sea area? Tang Xiu had never heard about such a name and immediately asked, "Where is this Evil Dragon Sea area? For what purpose will we break into that place?" Dao Master Zi asked with a surprised expression. "Benefactor Tang doesn't know about Evil Dragon Sea area? I don't know about it." Tang Xiu shook his head. Dao Master Zi then said, "Evil Dragon Sea area is located thousands of miles away from Jingmen Island. It's a narrow waterway small strait in the South China Sea. It's because our Ziyang Monastery's best ability is in tool refining, so this poor Taoist prepared to collect some fierce beasts materials and special ores. So this one has prepared to hunt and kill some fierce beasts. However, this poor Taoist knows of the feeble strength this one has. It would be very difficult to come out of that place unscathed had this one gone alone. Since this one has heard about Benefactor Tang's extremely high achievement, this one wants to invite you to go together." Evil Dragon Sea area? Killing fierce beasts and seeking for special ores? Tang Xiu's mind was as though shook by tremors and immediately asked, "When will we embark?" "Only the two of us?" Dao Master Zi said with a smile. "It seems that Benefactor Tang has agreed." "Yes, only the two of us. This poor Taoist wants to invite a few people, but this one only has a few personal contacts. Besides, this one doesn't have the means to invite other Dao cultivators on Jingmen Island." Tang Xiu was silent for a moment as two faces immediately emerged in his mind. They were Xiaomingxin and Miao Wendong, as he was considering as if he should invite them both to go together or not. Others might be clueless about this matter, but he was crystal clear about it. His cultivation at present was only at the first layer of Star's tyrannical body, the vitality tempering layer peak. If he were to fight experts such as Xiaomingxin and Miao Wendong at a close distance, he might have been instantly killed by them. The more helpers they could get, the more chance to live they would have. Tang Xiu quickly made a decision and said, "Since Dao Master Zi cannot invite others, then I'll invite two people. And to be honest, I'm also in need for materials from fierce beasts. Please wait until I invited them. And about our harvest, how about we share equally between the four of us?" Dao Master Zi slightly hesitated before he nodded and said with a smile, "Then, this old Taoist will follow Benefactor Tang's words." Tang Xiu took his phone and pulled out Miao Wentong's business card he gave him and dialed his number on the back of it. At this moment, Miao Wentong and Xiaomingxin were staying at a 5-star hotel as they chatted about what had happened at the Paradise Club. Xiaomingxin attentively listened to Miao Wentong's vivid narration as he secretly regretted not going there to spectate it. Yi Taifu's losses were not his fault. Comparing eyesight and speed with someone from the cultivation world is only courting himself with troubles. However, Tang Xiu's action and style are really unpredictable. Such an honored cultivator, but he even went out to help someone in gambling houses. What an interesting young man. Xiao Mingjun said and laughed. Miao Wentong continued whilst smiling, true. Cultivators have always been cultivating and tempering their mind and soul, and diligently promoting their cultivation. This is the first time I came across someone from the cultivation world gambling. However, I've apologized to Tang Xiu for my previous little conflict. But if he doesn't forgive me, then I have no other means left. Xiao Mingjun shook his head and said, I don't think so. Tang Xiu is not the type of narrow-minded person that will bear a grudge over small things. Since you've apologized to him, I don't think he will pay in mind about that matter. I really hope so. Miao Wentong said with a forced and wry smile. Xiao Mingjun no longer mentioned the topic about Tang Xiu and shifted to other subjects. Brother Miao, can you get the admission ticket for the annual Violet Redbud auction tonight? The true reason I rushed over to Jingmen Island is actually for two things. First was to challenge the 1000 Revolution Array, and second was to participate in the Violet Redbud auction. Miao Wentong replied with a smile, in fact, I also have this purpose. Yesterday, some Jingmen Island's business circle friends gave me a few tickets. So we can go together in the evening. However, I should give you a forewarning. I've prepared quite a lot of money with me right now to buy a few things I need. Xiao Mingjun lightly laughed, Bah, I don't want to follow your evil intentions on competition. But if I really need something, I will go all out. Besides, there are only a few useful things for cultivators like us in this annual Violet Redbud auction. I know. Miao Wentong nodded. Ring ring ring. A cell phone ringtone sounded and interrupted their conversation. Miao Wentong took his phone out and found that the caller ID and number was unfamiliar. According to his previous habit, he just wanted to hang the phone up directly. But when Tang Xiu's face suddenly emerged inside his mind, he immediately changed his idea and pressed the answer button, saying, Miao Wentong speaking, who's this? I'm Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu's voice was transmitted through the phone. Miao Wentong's pupil shrunk as a somewhat happy expression was suddenly revealed on his face as he quickly asked, Mr. Tang, do you need something that requires my assistance? Yes. Someone called Dao Master Z invited me to hunt and kill fierce beasts in the Evil Dragon Sea area. Do you have any interest to go with us? Miao Wentong quickly glanced at Xiao Mingjun's eyes and spoke in a deep tone. I know about Dao Master Z and have been friends with him for more than 2 decades. I do want to join you, but can I bring another person? Xiao Mingjun happens to be here with me right now. It's fine. Tang Xiu said. Miao Wentong then asked, when will we go out? And where can we meet? Tang Xiu said, if you can, come to Seaside Straight Manor now. When you have arrived here, find manager Hu Sinyu and he'll take you to us. Alright, we'll catch up with you immediately. The call ended. Miao Wentong narrated Tang Xiu's words again as he grinned and smiled. Brother Xiao, Tang Xiu seems to be a really broad-minded person. He invited us to go to Evil Dragon Sea area to hunt fierce beasts. I think that this is a good chance to create a good relationship with him. Xiao Mingjun stood up and replied with a smile, this indeed is a heaven-sent opportunity. However, the Evil Dragon Sea area is a very dangerous place, so we'll have to be very careful on this trip. Okay. Inside the Seaside Straight Manor, Tang Xiu put his phone back and looked at Dao Master Z as he spoke. Please stay here together and have a meal. I believe that the 2 people I've invited will come over after lunch. I don't have much time, but since we've reached an agreement, we'll immediately leave after they have arrived. Dao Master Z said with a smile. This one didn't expect Benefactor Tang to be so swift and decisive. This poor Taoist really admires you. This one will follow your arrangements. Jia Ruidao looked at Dao Master Zi and Tang Xiu. Only now did he realize that he just saw a special circle of people, one that he couldn't squeeze himself into. However, he was someone with a slippery and sleek personality, so he immediately warmly invited Dao Master Zi with hospitality to take a seat. The lunch was very sumptuous, the most sumptuous one Tang Xiu had until now. He even felt that it was somewhat too luxurious, giving him the feeling of frustration at the same time. Such as the two main courses, the ingredients were good-grade fierce beast meat. If these fierce beast meat were given to him, he could have been able to use these meats as the main ingredients to refine the golden bell liquid. Unfortunately, the spiritual essence inside the meat has been cleanly consumed, so it has no benefits for the body. With Tang Xiu's sigh, their lunch finished. Jia Ruidao previously had the intention to accompany Tang Xiu for some time, but since he knew that Tang Xiu had something to do later, he motioned to his 3 apprentices to get up and leave. Tang Xiu didn't detain them, he didn't even say any polite words to them and only quietly watched Jia Ruidao leave. Benefactor Tang, this poor Taoist heard that you have broken through the 1,000 revolution array in Everlasting Feast Hall. It's really amazing. To tell you the truth, this poor Taoist has once also challenged that formation array, but unfortunately, this poor Taoist's cultivation is limited and was only able to break through the 3rd layer. After that, this one had no choice but to quickly withdraw. Dao Master Zi spoke whilst holding his duster as he spoke to Tang Xiu, who sat on the opposite side. Tang Xiu shook his head and said, "My cultivation is very low and my strength is very weak. However, I have a deep knowledge in breaking formation arrays, so it's only natural that I'm more powerful compared to other cultivators in breaking the array. In any case, I'm afraid that I can't give much help in hunting high-order fierce beasts in the Evil Dragon Sea area." Dao Master Zi hesitated and was silent for a little while before he spoke in a serious tone. "Benefactor Tang, you don't need to belittle yourself. In my opinion, an array master is much stronger compared to powerful cultivators. For our hunting trip, Benefactor Tang only needs to deploy a killing array to hunt, while we will direct the fierce beasts to the array. So our hunting trip would be much easier." Tang Xiu quickly understood Dao Master Zi's meaning as he nodded and said, "It wouldn't be much a problem in deploying the formation array, however, I would need some materials though." Dao Master Zi asked, "What kind of materials?" Tang Xiu said, "Jades. The better the quality, the better formation array I can deploy. Moreover, I would also need to draw some paper talismans to use them in line with the array." Dao Master Zi replied with a smile, "These are only small problems. This poor Taoist has a friend who has a jade business on Jingmen Island. This one will contact him right now and send you the jades as quickly as possible. As for the paper talisman, I can only trouble Benefactor Tang for that." "It's all right." Then, Tang Xiu continued, "To draw the paper talismans, I would have to buy some things. Well, you wait here for the 2 people invited by me, whilst I go out to buy those things. Wait for me to finish drawing the paper talismans before we set out on our trip." "All right." Chapter 97, Violet Redbud Auction. Tang Xiu had just come out from the villa's hall when he bumped into a middle-aged man at the entrance. The man had a square face, a well-shaped figure, 1.8 m in height, and sparkling eyes that were full of spirit. "Who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for Tang Xiu." Tang Xiu's brow slanted as he sized him up and said, "I'm Tang Xiu, who are you?" "I'm Tang Dong. I heard that you wanted to see me?" Tang Dong also sized up Tang Xiu as a quizzical expression could be seen from his eyes. He didn't understand why the young man who was recently famous in the last 2 days on Jingmen Island wished to see him. Tang Xiu nodded and said, "Yes, I originally wanted to see the old master of the manor. But since I heard that it was very difficult to see him, I wanted to see you to ask you about something. Can we find another suitable place to speak?" Tang Dong looked at Tang Shou's villa as he turned around and said, "Come with me. There's a villa specially used as a tea house nearby. It's usually not open to the public though." Shortly after, they arrived at the villa as the attendants then served tea. Whilst savoring the taste of the tea, Tang Dong looked at Tang Xiu and asked, "Then, tell me. For what issues are you seeking me for?" Tang Xiu said, "I'm interested in the ingredients you're using for the main course. If I may, could you tell me the place where you have hunted the fierce beasts?" Tang Dong replied with a smile. It's for this matter. In fact, there are a lot of people who know about the place where we hunt fierce beasts. There's a marine trench near Jingmen Island called the Eyes of Death. There are some fierce beasts there, with each one of them being very ferocious. Even the majority of them have simple spiritual wisdom." Tang Xiu said, "Hunting these ferocious beasts couldn't have been easy, could it?" Tang Dong replied with a helpless expression, "Naturally, it's not easy. Every time we go to the Eyes of Death, some of our staff are injured and even die. This is also the reason why the meal pricing at our Seaside Strait Manor is very expensive." Tang Xiu replied with an expression of understanding. "I could tell that your manor's security personnel are martial arts expert. If you pay a little bit of attention, you could use tip-pointed weapons to hunt the fierce beasts. Lastly, does your manor sell the fierce beast bodies?" Tang Dong frowned as he asked with a puzzled expression, "You need fierce beast bodies?" Tang Xiu said, "Yes, that's right." Tang Dong shook his head and said, "Our manor does indeed have fierce beast bodies, but they are not for sale. Because hunting fierce beasts is very difficult and it's also our manor's specialty since we need the ingredients from fierce beast bodies, so I'm very sorry." Tang Xiu was silent for a while before he slowly spoke, "If I don't need fierce beast meat, can you sell me the fierce beast skin, claw, scales, bones, blood, and other materials?" Tang Dong then asked with a curious expression, "What do you need these things for?" Tang Xiu calmly answered, "I'm going to deploy formation array and need these things in particular." Tang Dong asked with astonishment, "You can create a formation array? Isn't that some kind of ancient art of deploying formation for divination and making yourself invisible?" Tang Xiu nodded and said, "I believe you've heard about me having broken through the 6th layer of the 1000 Revolution array at the Everlasting Feast Hall, yes? If I have no knowledge about formation arrays, how could it be possible to break through the array?" Tang Dong patted his forehead as he smiled and said, How could my head be this murky at this time? Anyways, since you need these things, I can sell them to you. But since we're businessmen, what price can you give me for these?" Tang Xiu thought for a moment before he replied seriously, "For one fierce beast's remaining skin, claws, scales, bones, and other materials, I'll pay you 5 million, how about it?" 5 million? Tang Dong looked at Tang Xiu with a dumbstruck expression. He never once dreamed that Tang Xiu would offer such a high price. His manor only used the meat from the fierce beast's body and had nearly no other uses for the remaining parts. Even so, all the meat taken from fierce beasts as food ingredients were only sold for about 10 million. As for the remaining parts, they sold them at a very low price. What? Is the price not enough? Tang Xiu asked more. Tang Dong waved his hand and said, No, no, no. It's satisfying enough. Your price is fair, so we have a deal. Are there any other things you need? Tang Xiu said, If you have them at present, I can directly buy them right now. Tang Dong immediately got up and spoke seriously, Our manor happens to have the remaining parts of fierce beasts. I'll take you there to see them. All right. Tang Xiu then got up immediately. However, when he just followed Tang Dong for about 10 steps, only then did he remember that he also should buy the materials to draw paper talisman, so he immediately spoke and said, May I ask for another favor? Tang Dong replied with an amiable expression, Please do say. Tang Xiu said, I was planning to go out to buy some things. Could you send someone to help me buy them? Those materials are not easy to find but are cheap. I believe that if you ask around, you can find and buy them. Tang Dong replied whilst smiling, it's all right. Write the things you want to buy on a note and I'll send someone to buy them immediately. You can pay for them later after he comes back. That's fine. 10 minutes later. Tang Xiu and Tang Dong came to the kitchen deep inside the manor area and went over to a large warehouse behind the kitchen. A large ice compartment was beside the warehouse with 2 dead frozen fierce beasts inside. After being dissected, the other fierce beast body parts were then piled on the stockpile outside. These are remaining body parts from 4 fierce beasts, and we have no uses for them. If you find them satisfying, then we'll sell them to you according to your price. With some expectation on his face, Tang Dong looked at Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu scrutinized them for a few minutes as he nodded and said, I'll take them and transfer the money to you immediately. But could I ask for another favor again? Do tell me. Tang Dong happily replied. Tang Xiu said, I come from Star City, but I have no time and means to ship these things back to Star City. I'll give you my address, could you send them to my place? After you deliver them, I'll arrange some people to receive these things there. Tang Dong replied with a smile, no problem. For fierce beasts remaining body parts for a total 20 million. Since Tang Xiu had just learned to transfer through mobile banking, he transferred 20 million to Tang Dong. For 6 months, for every fierce beast your manor hunts and dissects, please send all the remaining body parts to me. Save my mobile number and send them to Star City, and then I'll transfer you the money immediately. Having finished the transaction, Tang Xiu added again. Tang Dong stared blankly as he then replied with astonishment, only half a year? Tang Xiu said, yes, only half a year. The fierce beasts you've hunted are only low-order fierce beasts and are only useful for about 6 months to me. After 6 months, unless you can hunt more powerful fierce beasts, they are no longer useful to me. Tang Dong suddenly understood as he smiled and said, rest assured. Since it's only half a year, I will naturally send people to the Eyes of Death to hunt for a larger number of fierce beasts. Tang Xiu nodded and said, that being the case, I'll go back to the villa where I had my meal first. I'll pay for the meals and the things I need to buy directly to the person you have sent. Tang Dong waved and said, I already know the things you must buy. The money you've paid is already enough so you don't need to pay more. He wasn't a fool. He already got a high price from the fierce beast's remaining body parts. So he didn't care about a small amount of money. He might as well give a little discount as a favor since he had a future transaction agreement with Tang Xiu to sell fierce beast materials. Then, that's good. Tang Xiu only simply complied and left directly. Tang Dong squinted his eyes as he looked at Tang Xiu's back. A peculiar feeling sprouted in his heart. Tang Xiu was obviously only about 20 years old. But his attitude and mannerism were unlike a young man, and instead felt like a mature and experienced man, even giving off a vibe of a person with a distinguished status. This kind of feeling made him feel that it was absurd and ridiculous. Tang Xiu returned to the villa where he had his meal before and found that Xiaomingzhen and Miao Wendong had arrived as they were chatting with Dao Master Zi. Mr. Tang. Mr. Tang. Xiaomingzhen and Miao Wendong got up and greeted with a slightly cordial tone. Tang Xiu nodded at them and said, you need to wait for a while. I've asked someone to buy the materials to draw the paper talismans we would need, and they soon will be sent to me. Just wait for me to draw the paper talismans and we can begin our journey. Xiaomingzhen and Miao Wendong glanced at each other and they didn't speak. Dao Master Zi then spoke with a smile, Benefactor Tang, this poor Taoist has never thought that the 2 friends you've invited turned out to be Benefactor Xiao and Benefactor Miao. This poor Taoist has been acquainted with them before but didn't know that they also visited Jingmen Island. I've just chatted with them and heard about the Violet Redbud auction. If we may, can we reschedule the trip to the Evil Dragon Sea area for tomorrow? Rescheduling and delaying the time? Tang Xiu's eyebrows wrinkled. He was somewhat unhappy inside, but did not directly show it, and instead asked, "What is this violet redbud auction?" Miao Wentong quickly explained, "The violet redbud auction is a nationwide large annual auction where some useful items for cultivators would sometimes be auctioned there. I've participated in a few events of violet redbud auction and obtained a big harvest, even though I did spend quite a large amount of money. If we miss it this time, we have to wait again next year." Things that are useful to cultivators? Tang Xiu thought for a moment and then slowly spoke, "That being the case, then we'll leave tomorrow. However, when will violet redbud auction be held? Is there any chance for me to participate?" Miao Wentong secretly felt relieved. He was really afraid that Tang Xiu would not agree. Upon hearing Tang Xiu's inquiry, he immediately replied, "2 days ago my friends on Jingmen Island had given me 4 tickets to the violet redbud auction. I originally planned for me and brother Xiao to go, but added with the 2 of you, the tickets are sufficient." Tang Xiu said, "That's good then. Fortunately, I have a little cash to spare. I'll have a look whether there would be something that I need to buy there." Miao Wentong and Xiao Mingzhen glanced at each other as they secretly smiled wryly in their hearts. They wanted to form a good relationship with Tang Xiu. If they happened to eye the same thing as Tang Xiu, they probably would not choose to compete with Tang Xiu. Chapter 98, Determined to Win. It was evening. Tang Xiu, with a pale face, followed by Miao Wentong and 3 others, came to the violet redbud auction venue. The auction was held at Jingmen Island's International Business Conference Center, on the 18th floor. The venue for the auction was huge. Over 1,000 tables and chairs, and 1/3 of them had been occupied, with more people rushing in from the outside. 4 people casually found a seat and sat down as the auction venue's attendants presented them with the list of items that would be auctioned, and had been prepared in advance. Tang Xiu sat in his chair as he skimmed over the items list that was being auctioned. The detailed list was 3 pages long and presented each item with pictures and a text description. The first 2 pages made him quite disappointed. Although those items were good objects, but he simply had no uses for them. But, when Tang Xiu opened the last page and skimmed over the list, his vision suddenly froze as disbelief filled his eyes. Void crackstone? It turned out to be a void crackstone? If the taken photo was true, then this was definitely the main material to refining a spatial ring, the void crackstone. In that instant, Tang Xiu's heart accelerated and beat faster as a determined expression could be seen on his face. At first, he had his worries since he would go to the evil Dragon Sea area. If they were to hunt a large number of fierce beasts with large fierce beasts' bodies, how would they transport them? But if he could refine a spatial ring, shipping them back would not be a problem. Such a low price of 5 million. With the increase being 500,000 for each bid? Tang Xiu thought for a moment. He thought that he had the funds right now, so it wouldn't be a problem to compete and successfully bid for this fist-sized void crackstone. After the gamble with Yi Taifu at Paradise Club, the money he won after having subtracted 250 million for Jia Ruidao's shares, he got 250 million. He used 20 million to buy the fierce beast body parts, so the remaining money he had now was 230 million. The void crackstone's floor price is 5 million. I have 230 million, so it wouldn't be a problem to purchase this thing. If it's not enough, I can borrow money from Jia Ruidao. When I get more money, I can pay him back. Tang Xiu secretly calculated in his mind. Huh? Tang Xiu's heart was struck with surprise again as his eyes then fell on the list below as he found another useful thing, a 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. Had it been in the immortal world, let alone a 1,000 years old wild ginseng, even 10,000 years old wild ginseng, he never lacked of these ginsengs. He used to feed 1,000-year-old wild ginseng to spirit beasts. but for the present this thing was very precious. If he could buy this 1,000-year-old wild ginseng, he would have the main ingredients to concoct the golden bell liquid, and the efficacy would absolutely be excellent. Buy. I must buy it. Tang Xiu looked at the offered floor price as his eyes suddenly filled with disbelief. 50 million? This 1,000-years-old wild ginseng floor price turned out to be 50 million. Moreover, the amount of bid increase must not be under 2 million. Tang Xiu's lips wriggled. If I moved all of the 1,000-year-old ginseng in my herb field in the immortal world, I should be able to buy more than 10 planet Earths, right? This price is really too appalling, a scam. His eyes looked downward and also found other few items that would be useful for cultivators, but he had no big uses for them. He finally decided and locked his target. They were the void crackstone and 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. He silently calculated the final expense he must pay to obtain these two things. Mr. Tang, what objects have your eyes set onto? After Xiao Mingjin had read the auction's list of items in his hand, he turned around and looked at Tang Xiu at his side as he whispered to ask. Tang Xiu pointed at the void crackstone and 1,000-years-old wild ginseng as he said, I need these two things. And I must get both at all costs. Xiao Mingjin looked at the void crackstone with some astonishment. It was because he didn't know what this stone was. The auctioneer only described that the ore was rare and extremely hard, and suspected that it was from a meteorite from space. However, for that 1,000-years-old wild ginseng, he couldn't help lament since he was also targeting it. At the present time on Earth, a 1,000-year-old wild ginseng is extremely rare, to the point that its price had no fixed market price. Even if some people wanted to spend a large amount of money, nobody heard of a 100-year-old wild ginseng being sold for so many years. Let alone a 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. Even more, 500-years-old wild ginsengs were extremely rare and very few to be seen nowadays. I should forget it and give it up then. Xiao Mingjin secretly sighed inside as he turned and touched Miao Wendong, preparing to tell him about the two items Tang Xiu wanted to buy. Miao Wendong was also targeting the 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. But just like Xiao Mingjin, he finally intended to give it up after knowing that Tang Xiu wanted it. As for Dao Master Z, he just came to the venue, and was purely acting with everything was none of my business. Even if there was something he liked, he wouldn't try to even bid. It was not because he had no desire to buy, but because he was poor to the point that he only had penny money and simply couldn't afford anything. 8 p.m. sharp. Along with the auction stage opening, a young beautiful woman at the prime of her life walked onto the stage. The originally noisy auction venue suddenly quieted down as everyone's eyes were fixated on the young beautiful woman. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the annual Violet Redbud auction. This year's auction is held on Jingmen Island, and all the items that will be auctioned have been listed on the auction's detailed list. My name is Xiao Ai, and I'm also this year's Violet Redbud auction's auctioneer. The auction session will soon begin, and I believe that all the ladies and gentlemen have already seen the auction's list of items. It is my sincere wish that everyone will be able to obtain the items you want and return back with a rewarding journey. Said Xiao Ai. I hereby announce that the 21st annual Violet Redbud auction has officially begun. The following first auctioned item is a precious antique, a blue-white porcelain vase produced by the late Ming and early Qing dynasty's royal kiln. Everyone mustn't look down on this blue-white porcelain vase. The seal above it shows that it is the imperial household seal, and was used only for the emperor. It's highly likely that the vase was used in the emperor palace of the great Qing dynasty. Tang Xiu sat quietly under the stage as he listened to the grandiloquent introduction from the auctioneer. As the auction was announced to officially begin, he looked at the following hundreds of guests of the Violet Redbud auction as they competed in bidding for the items, giving off a peculiar strange feeling to him. It was as the saying goes that, when the world was in chaos, opportunity arises, but when the world was in a golden age, Amassing wealth is flourishing. And now, he was deeply appreciating the true meaning of this sentence. Each item was being auctioned at a high price, and each item would be bought at sky-high prices. He couldn't help but sigh. At present, there were a lot of rich people, and they loved to amass wealth and become richer. Certainly, he also had another kind of thought, that rich people were foolish. Buying pieces of dead objects and bringing them home with such meaningless significance. The auction had lasted for 2 hours and Tang Xiu had yet to bid even once. In contrast, Xiao Mingjin and Miao Wendong had bid once and bought the items they needed. For the next items we will auction, it is a rare ore. This rare ore is very hard and we suspect that the ore came from the space and crushed down to Earth as a meteorite. I believe that this will be a very precious collection of valuable minerals. Perhaps, this space item's value will be more valuable in the future and would be very difficult to estimate. The floor price is 5 million, and every bid increase must not be under 500,000. Let us begin the auction now. The auctioneer held the void crackstone in her hand and explained in an excellent voice and expression as she announced the start of the auction. It has come. Tang Xiu's spirit shook as his eyes tightly locked on that piece of void crackstone. He didn't rush to bid because during the last 2 hours of observation, he could tell that from the initial bidder, only very few of them would really want to buy. They were as though throwing the brick to attract the jade, and only initiated the bidding, and if some people called for the biddings, they would immediately renounce it. If nobody called for the bid, they might be able to obtain the item with little money, but still buy it as one of the things they took a fancy at. 6 million. A voice sounded, as the person also raised his flag sign. 6.5 million. 7 million. 7.5 million. Shortly after, the void crackstone's price had risen to 9.5 million. However, after the last person called the bid, nobody raised the bid after 10 seconds. A sweet smile hung on the auctioneer's face as she said, "That gentleman has bid for 9.5 million. Any other guests calling for a higher bid?" Everyone, don't take lightly of this rare ore with its mysteriousness. Perhaps its value would be 10 times higher in the future compared to the present. 10 million. As the auctioneer's voice fell, another voice sounded. Tang Xiu took a deep breath as he raised his sign and said, 10.5 million. 15 million. The voice sounded again. Tang Xiu lifted his sign and exclaimed, 20 million. Whoosh. Everyone at the auction venue turned around and looked at Tang Xiu as streams of comments sounded. Who is throwing away money, more silly people? An unknown ore with unknown uses? Even if it is rare, it's not worth 20 million, right? Believing the auctioneer's cons to get rich quickly in the future? What a world-level joke is this? Buying a piece of ore for 20 million? Even 10 million is way too much. Rich people this year really don't value money. What a spendthrift young man. I don't know the prodigal juniors from which family he comes from. If I had such a junior, I would have broken his leg absolutely and grounded him at home to reflect on his mistakes in seclusion. That young man, could he have taken a liking to the auctioneer girl? Wanting to showcase his worth in front of her? Wow, this is really interesting. With his sharp hearing, Tang Xiu clearly heard a lot of people's commentaries in the conference hall. But he still wore his indifferent expression. For those who had no knowledge about the truly precious things, he didn't want to even pay notice to them. And for that absolute reason, there wasn't even a chance that he would tell them about the void crackstone's uses. Besides, in his hands, void crackstone was a treasure, but for people who wouldn't refine the stone into a spatial ring, it was only a lump of rough stone. The auctioneer looked at Tang Xiu deeply as she smiled and asked, "The handsome young man has bid 20 million. Are there any higher bids than 20 million? If not, this precious rare ore will be sold to that handsome young man." The auction venue was silent for a while. When the auctioneer was about to speak the final word and announce that the void crackstone was sold to Tang Xiu, a voice suddenly sounded. 50 million. Chapter 99, The Bidding Race. Everyone in the entire auction venue was all shocked by the sudden voice. Even if Tang Xiu regarded money as though it was a dirt and didn't think much about it, however, almost nobody amongst people in this era would recognize this void crackstone. And it was unexpected that someone would be willing to bid such a high price for it. Tang Xiu followed the sound source as he found the bidder guest. He was an old man who wore a black Chinese tunic suit, with a full set of white hair, and an amiable benign face, giving off the impression of a philanthropist. However, facing the gaze of everyone's eyes, he revealed a proud expression. Especially when he realized that Tang Xiu looked over at him as he particularly tilted his chin up, and showed a provocative look in his eyes toward Tang Xiu. So troublesome. Tang Xiu sighed inside as he raised his bid once again, 60 million. Wish. The entire auction venue boiled as all eyes shifted back and forth between Tang Xiu and the old man. And as such, as the saying goes that in each abnormal event, there must be some kind of reasons and causes, and some people were even secretly thinking, was this piece of rare stone perhaps really a treasure? However, guesses were still guesses, and still nobody joined the race. The reason was pretty simple. Even if the stone was precious, they simply had no knowledge about it. In the case that they bought a worthless item, that meant they were really the biggest idiot of all. Much less, that the old man's complexion had turned ugly and no longer called for a bigger bid anymore. The previously expressionless Tang Xiu looked at the distant with a smiling expression that was gradually revealed on his face. The old man's complexion turned unsightly as though he was a widow that had been left with her dead husband, and was forced to marry an old gramps. Tang Xiu could see that the old man's lips wriggled a few times as he wanted to speak and call for a higher bid, before he was eventually able to control it. What's it all about? Tang Xiu originally calculated that he could have spent a large amount of money, but he didn't expect that the old man would stop right there. Excitement flashed in the auctioneer's eyes as she spoke with an agitated and spirited expression, saying, "There is a saying that the eyes of the people are as bright as the snow, but for me, I want to quote the modern slang, don't miss any chance that passes by. If this ore is not precious enough, then how could it be priced highly in an auction? I'm really very lucky and feel happy because I'm able to witness people who have good taste and discerning eyes with a strong mentality, as though bright and burning torch as being able to recognize this treasure. That handsome gentleman has bid 60 million. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? If there's none, this piece of rare treasure will belong to that gentleman. Anyone?" The auction venue, which usually full of bidding shouts, turned into complete silence along with the auctioneer's conclusions. Everyone's eyes wandered between Tang Xiu and the old man. Everyone was very curious, would the old man call a higher bid? Some people even had been preparing to immediately snatch the bidding once the old man raised his bid again. But, as the auctioneer had said, do not ever miss the chance that passes by. In the case that if the stone was really a rare treasure, even if they were unable to recognize it for now, but they could slowly study it, so the might be crossed into a huge surprise. However, a lot of people were disappointed since the old man didn't raise his bid again. So many people were disappointed that the old man did not offer another bid again. It was also quite regretful for the auctioneer. But she was still excited inside, since never once in her dreams did she think that the stone would shoot to such a high price. As an auctioneer, she would get a percentage commission for each item sold at the auction. Since this item auctioned for 60 million, that meant she unexpectedly got money easily. "Then, I hereby announce that this precious ore is sold to that gentleman. You may proceed to the backstage to complete the transaction now, or wait until the auction ends and then go to the backstage." Tang Xiu didn't hesitate and immediately rushed to the backstage. This void crackstone was an urgent material he needed right now, so he must obtain it as quickly as possible. Inspecting the item and accepting it, then pay the sum of money. The transaction went very smoothly, as Tang Xiu quickly returned back to his seat at the auction venue with the void crackstone. A smiling expression hung on the corner of Miao Wentong's mouth, even though he was fully confused as to why Tang Xiu bought the stone. But since it was Tang Xiu, he didn't ask, but smiled and said in a low voice, "Congrats, Mr. Tang, for obtaining the treasure." "Thanks." Tang Xiu nodded. After having hesitated for a moment, he said, "Let's change our remark, and call me Tang Xiu directly later on, and I will call you by your name." "That's great." Miao Wentong looked at Tang Xiu's indifferent expression as he secretly smiled in his heart. The next auctioned items proceeded in a quick manner. Tang Xiu really admired the auctioneer's speech ability. A lot of items' original value were not high, but it was her unceasing speech that was like strings of pearls that sparked people's interest, making them generously spend their money, causing the auctioned item's price to climb. "She's gifted." These words suddenly appeared inside Tang Xiu's mind. Hours later. The auction would soon be finished and also enter the final climax. The next auctioned item is our second to last item. This is also the item that a lot of people have been heavily paying attention to, the 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. It is public knowledge that along with today's rapid development in technology, our mountain ranges forest is being severely exploited nowadays. Thus, finding a genuine wild ginseng has already been a difficult thing to do, much less a 1,000-year-old wild ginseng. It is as rare and difficult as finding phoenix feathers and unicorn horns, a rare and far between object. And tonight, to whom will this precious treasure belong to? Thus, I hereby announce that the true auction has begun. The moment the auctioneer Xiao Ai had finished speaking and stepped back, the auction venue boiled with guests competing in the biddings. 60 million. 70 million. 75 million. 80 million. Tang Xiu, however, didn't rush to participate. He was waiting for the final bidding race. However, the prices climbed up to 180 million in just 2 minutes. This was the price that he could afford with the funds he had right now. The difference is only 10 million right now, and the amount would probably change shortly after. Should I look for Jia Ruidao to borrow some money? Jia Ruidao's shares are 250 million and added with his capital, it should be around 300 million. However, he also has a debt loan. So if his money is subtracted by his loan, perhaps he also only has a small amount remaining left. Tang Xiu's mind raced faster as he thought to look for Jia Ruidao to borrow some money. Borrowing money was easy, but to pay it back, it would be quite difficult, wouldn't it? After all, the amount was hundreds of millions at once. Even if the funds could be used for Kong Xia in establishing the company and all ready to run the business and make money. However, how long would it take to pay back the money to Jia Ruidao? Half a minute later. Tang Xiu had made up his mind to borrow money. He believed in his ability, and he didn't want to miss this 1,000-years-old ginseng. Tang Xiu left the seat and went toward the corner end of the auction venue to make a phone call. Finally, he knew that Jia Ruidao had a debt loan of 220 million, and his remaining money now only amounted to 80 million. Tang Xiu didn't hesitate to borrow that 80 million directly. Ding. A few minutes later, his phone received an SMS that 80 million had been transferred to his bank account. 218 million, is there another higher bidder? If there's none, this 1,000-years-old wild ginseng will be that gentleman's. The auctioneer looked excited and loudly asked. Tang Xiu looked at the silent guests in the surroundings as he slowly raised the sign in his hand and said, 220 million. The auctioneer, Xiao Ai's eyes brightened up as she said with a smile, the hero indeed comes from youths. That gentleman has offered 220 million, a truly amazing capital. Today's scene truly makes me think that a great man always come out amongst youths. However, could it be that the old ginger is no longer hotter than the young ones? Anyways, shouldn't somebody bid higher than this handsome gentleman? If not, this 1,000-years-old ginseng will be this handsome gentleman's. An agitated expression surfaced on a lot of people's faces in the auction venue. They did approve the saying that heroes came from youths. However, listening to old gingers are no longer spicy, ignited their anger and made their self-pride rage inside. A plump middle-aged man who sat in the front row near the beautiful young girl forcefully pulled the gold necklace on his neck, along with the few millions yuan of watch as he spoke with a hoarse voice, 230 million. 250 million. A beam of cold light burst from Tang Xiu's eyes as he shouted with a deep voice. That fat middle-aged man pushed the beautiful young girl at his side as he turned his head and stared at Tang Xiu, and then motioned his middle finger at him whilst exclaiming, 300 million. Whoosh. Everyone inside the entire auction venue was all shocked by the fat middle-aged man's bid. 300 million? 1,000-years-old wild ginseng auctioned for a sky-high price of 300 million yuan? Everyone began to whisper to each other. From where is that silly fatty's origin? Even coming up with 300 million to buy a 1,000-year-old ginseng? I can tell that the food he has eaten becomes the fat in his body and doesn't go to his brain, absolutely. A 1,000-year-old wild ginseng value is at the most only priced at 150 million. More than that, he's just a spendthrift fool. Stupid, even if the 1,000-year-old ginseng is precious, it's not worth to the point where one has to spend 300 million, is it? He's obviously aiming to strive over that youth ferociously. What a damn idiot. Too many idiots sprouting up nowadays, especially this year. Is this fatty really drunk and has a fever of his riches? Idiot people with money are indeed out there. Tang Xiu squinted his eyes as he looked at the provocative expression on the fat middle-aged man's complexion. He secretly sighed inside. He couldn't afford it. The highest offer he could bid was only 250 million, and he couldn't follow the race any longer. In life, one sometimes has to wait for the end, and there's no need to push forward when something is not fated. This sentence appeared in Tang Xiu's mind as he finally let out an unceasing forced smile. He was once very rich, everything he had taken a liking was his. So he was perfectly aware of the power of money. However, at present, he just restarted from the scratch again with a severe lack of funds. Finally, the 1,000-year-old wild ginseng was bought by the fat middle-aged man. A good scene will soon be coming. Some faint excitement could be heard from Miao Wenong, who sat at Tang Xiu's side. Tang Xiu asked with a surprised expression, "Isn't the 1,000-year-old ginseng the most expensive item on the auction's list of items? Shouldn't it be the last auctioned item? Is there another thing not listed on the list?" Miao Wenong whispered, "Mr. Tang. Tang Xiu, you didn't participate in the previous Violet Red Bud auction, so you don't know about its custom. For each auction's event, there has always been auctioned items that are not on the list as the last finale of the play." So that's how it is. I see. Tang Xiu suddenly realized. For this last item, he had a bit of anticipation. Since he didn't spend money to buy the 1,000-year-old ginseng, maybe the last auction item was what he needed. Suddenly, all the lights at the auction venue were lit, as a band of dim white light was shown on top of the auctioneer's body. Eventually, the projector cast the pictures onto the wall behind the auctioneer. Chapter 100, Unhesitating by Any Means and Cost. All eyes were fixated on the projector screen inside the dark auction venue as a video was then played. The waves surged forth from the roaring, vast, and boundless sea, as it spread over and surrounded an isolated island that was like a mosaic gem inlaid. The eagle view hovered and dived down toward the isolated island. It was a quiet large island which was a few square kilometers in size, with rolling ranges of hills, verdant lush greeneries, and trees, as well as birdsongs and gorgeous brilliant flowers with butterfly groups flying around to play above them. A European-style castle stood magnificently at the central peak of the island as a smooth pathway at the hilltop branched out toward three areas, the road leading to the castle, one path to the nearby parking lot, and the other one to an aircraft parking ground. Looking through the isolated island's landscape, the astounding sceneries uncovered 9 ranges of hills that spread out to the sea. A European-style small pavilion was built at the end of each hill, as each hill had a road, a long downhill that was connected to the sea area with a private dock, where a few passenger ships were moored. 9 dragons spitting beads? How could it be? Tang Xiu's pupils contracted unceasingly as a burst of disbelief was emitted from his eyes. His body slightly shivered as stormy waves struck inside his heart unceasingly. When he was in the immortal world, he had once possessed a treasured land with this great feng shui pattern. The place had a rich heaven-earth spiritual qi, with strong and thick spiritual energy. Cultivating in that place would definitely lead to double the result for half of the effort. But the place was called the 9 Dragons Spitting Beads Secret Region there. The video playback ended. The lights at the auction site were relit again, followed by the auctioneer's voice who spoke with a shallow smile, "We've seen the video. That is the last auction item for this auction today." The 9 Dragons Island is located at the Pacific Ocean nearby another island called the Southern Bird Island, which is 2,000 nautical miles away from each other. This private island was originally owned by a European financial consortium owner. However, it was unfortunate that after the island has been developed for 2.5 years, the financial consortium owner had no choice but to sell this private island due to special circumstances. And it happens that the big boss of this auction has a good relationship with this private island's owner, so the owner entrusted the auction rights to us. I believe that each and every guest participating in this Violet Redbud auction is one of the richest and powerful people in our country, and I'm sure everyone is interested in this feng shui treasured island. Thus, without further ado, the auction for this private island will begin now. The floor price is 500 million yuan, and each bid increase is to be no less than 10 million. And now the auction officially begins. Along with the ending of the auctioneer's voice, the following hundreds of people under the stage who were participating in the auction were talking in a whisper. After all, this was related to a 500 million business transaction. Although they were filthy rich, but 500 million was not a small amount of money, even for them. That private island is damn good. A bit of a smiling expression was cast on Miao Wentong's face. But he didn't wish to compete in bidding for this island. He glanced to Tang Xiu at his side before he turned his sight toward other direction and looked at Xiaomingzhen. He then asked with a smile, "If I remember correctly, you're planning to buy a mansion overseas, aren't you? How about it? Do you have any interest?" Xiaomingzhen was silent for a moment before he slowly shook his head and said, "This private island's floor price is indeed not high. If it could be bought for 500 million and then sold afterward, you can still make money off it. And this, everyone is crystal clear about it. So I thought that even if it were to be sold at 1 billion, I don't think I can afford it. I'm not one of the local bosses, so there's no way I can be compared to you. Thus, I'm gonna just watch and enjoy the fun." Miao Wentong smiled and said, "Well, if you really want to buy it, I can lend you some money. But I can't get more than 1 billion in fluid capital though." Xiaomingzhen lightly laughed and replied, "Well, I'll just take a look first." Tang Xiu stood up as he went to the back corner of the auction venue and then dialed a number. Star City. Chen Zhizhong had just bought a villa near the Gazebo King Villa at Southgate Town. As he sat cross-legged in his study room, he was carefully practicing the cultivation method and technique Tang Xiu had taught him. He used to be a martial arts practitioner, but what he had been cultivating before was cultivating true qi, which was very different than an immortal cultivation method and technique. However, the Great Tao had a myriad of paths, with each path being unique but leading to the same origin. Because of his previous foundation, he was now trying hard to transform his true qi into origin qi. Ring ring ring. The phone suddenly rang and abruptly awakened Chen Zhizhong from his cultivation practice. A slight anger immediately surfaced on his complexion as he quickly grabbed his mobile and looked at the caller ID on the screen. Then, the angry look quickly vanished without a trace, and was replaced with a respectful expression as he then pressed the answer button. "Master, are you looking for me? I need money. The more the better. How much money can you transfer in 10 minutes? For half a minute Chen Zhizhong fell into a silence. His mind unceasingly thought about it deeply. Only after half a minute had passed did he reply, about 3 billion yuan. The time is too tight. If you can give half a day, I can gather up to 5 billion or more. Tang Xiu said, I'll send you my bank account number. 10 minutes later, transfer 3 billion yuan to my account. Yes. Chen Zhizhong quickly complied and no longer gave a thought to continue practicing as he began to make a phone call without stopping. Jingmen Island, at the auction venue. Xiaomingzhen and Miao Wendong were having a private chat as they suddenly aware that Tang Xiu had left his seat. They immediately looked at each other. Tang Xiu had left his seat before, made a phone call and then came back to participate in the 1,000 years old wild ginseng auction. Brother Miao, could it be Tang Xiu also wants to participate in this auction? Does he want this private island? An astonished expression flashed in Xiaomingzhen's eyes as he asked in a whisper. Miao Wentong whispered back, it could be very possible. You also saw his serious expression. I could tell it for sure. However, I really don't get him. He's very young, why would he want to run away and buy a private island in the Pacific Ocean? Is it possible that he wants to move there to seclude himself and cut off from the rest of the world? Xiaomingzhen let out a forced smile and said, I don't get him, moreover, I can't understand him in the slightest. To tell you the truth, seeing Tang Xiu's age and appearance, he gives me a contradictory feeling. Basically, I can't figure him out. He's too young of a man, but his words, conducts, and actions are not that of a young man's. In contrast, doesn't he look like a deep and wise old man? He's a freaking genius or a monster. Miao Wendong said his final judgment. Tang Xiu returned back to his seat and quietly waited for the funds to be transferred to his account. Although he saw the strange expressions on Miao Wendong and Xiaomingzhen's complexions, but he didn't speak nor explain anything. He did want the 1,000 years old wild ginseng, and very much at it. But this private island, he was determined to obtain it at all costs. Even if he must snatch it forcefully, then rob it he will. 510 million. A newly rich plump middle-aged man was the first to open the bid. 520 million. 550 million. This was the last round of auction, and only a few number of people were involved in this auction compared to the previous ones. However, few bidders in numbers there were, but the price was in constant increase. And one of the most spirited and jubilant in bidding was the fat middle-aged man who wore the gold chain. 7 or 8 minutes later, the price had climbed up to 1.48 billion. 1.5 billion. A bead of sweat permeated on the fat middle-aged man's forehead as he called for the bid. 2 billion. Another old man over his 70s raised the sign in his hand and shouted. The fat middle-aged man suddenly turned his head as he stared at the old man with eyes full of anger. He heavily breathed a few times before he shouted again, 2.1 billion. Up to this price, there were only the old man and the fat middle-aged man. The old man's complexion was expressionless as though he turned a blind eye to the fat middle-aged man's angry stares and face, as he shouted his bid once again, 2.2 billion. 2.3 billion. The fat middle-aged man's voice turned a bit hoarse, but he still insisted on bidding. However, his anger was quickly replaced with happiness, because the old man silently shook his head and no longer bidded. Huff. The fat middle-aged man wiped the sweat from his forehead and secretly felt relieved inside. It was actually his limit, if the price increased again, he would have to renounce it. The corner of the auctioneer's mouth was curled as she smiled with sparkling eyes and said, "The price of the 9 Dragons Island has risen to 2.3 billion yuan. This is indeed a terrifying amount of money, but I do still think that some people have yet to bid. After all, this is a few tens of square kilometers island with completed construction and development. If this private island were to be used accordingly, it definitely would be a paradise on earth, the one and only kingdom for its owner. There's no legal and public law on the 9 Dragons Island. The master of the island is the king, the sole sovereign of the land. If the island's owner wills it, he can apply to international laws to establish a new country. This island is the dreamland, a paradise. Now, I would like to ask once more, is there no one who wants to increase the bid? No one wants to be the owner of this 9 Dragons Island?" A deathly stillness and silence filled the entire auction venue. Everyone was watching each other. The auctioneer's words did instigate them and ignite their emotions and desires completely. But still, they couldn't get so much liquidity. For their enterprises, they would be seriously hit by the impact and would severely influence their companies and fracture them. Hearts were palpitating. But they were struck with helplessness. This was the deepest and truest portrait to depict their hearts. A trace of a disappointed expression was revealed on the young auctioneer's elegant face, Xiao Ai. Despite the 2.3 billion price already exceeding her expectations, she still hoped to sell the island at a higher price. In contrast, the fat middle-aged man was in the opposite mood as a smile emerged on his face. A proud expression could be seen on his complexion. His vision swept over to the last bidder, the old man, and then subconsciously glanced at Tang Xiu. 2.5 billion. Tang Xiu's voice finally reverberated inside the auction venue. In just a split second, everyone inside the auction venue showed a very strange expression. Not even one of them had ever thought that Tang Xiu, who couldn't buy the 1,000-year-old wild ginseng before, was now participating in this private island auction. He even bidded with such outrageously sky-high price. Did he have so much money? From where did he get so much courage? Furthermore, who was he? Each and every question surged and bubbled up inside everyone's mind. Miao Wentong, Xiao Mingjin, and even the immortal manner-like Dao Master Zi, who were sitting beside Tang Xiu, were shocked and shaken by Tang Xiu's courage. They looked at Tang Xiu in disbelief. And never once did they expect that Tang Xiu was able to come up with so much money. Xiao Mingjin gently touched Miao Wentong and whispered, "You persuade him as not to act recklessly in this place. The hidden big boss behind this auction is very powerful, and someone we must absolutely avoid to offend."